Hello, my name is Iqbal Akhtar, and I wanted to welcome you all to our dialogue, um, our work on sort of interfaith relations and the future of covenantal pluralism, I suppose, here in the United States and around the world. So we're very honored to have our first guest of this series, who is Professor Mohammad Homayounvash, who is coming to us. He has multiple hats, but he's also director of the Interfaith Studies program here in Miami, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, everyone, and thank you so much, Professor Iqbal, for having us here. My name is Mohammad Homayounvash, and I'm the director of the Jaffer Institute for Interfaith Dialogue and Education at Miami Dade College. I'm also professor of international relations here at FIU, as well as the University of Miami. Again, glad and honored to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So, a bit as we start, can you talk to us a little bit about your background? Sort of where you grew up and your academic sort of background as well.
Sure. Yeah, I was born in Iran, in northwestern part, in the city of Tabriz. So I speak Turkish, Azeri Turkish, as my first language. Then I went to university in the city of Tehran. I did my bachelor's degree in linguistics. And in the late 2000s, I came to the United States to pursue my master's and PhD studies in international relations here at FIU. Upon which I went to Columbia University. I did a program there, then went to South Africa, did a postdoc there, came back to Louisiana State University, taught there for 2 years. And since 2020, we established the Jaffer Institute for Interfaith Dialogue at Miami Dade College, and I've been doing that work ever since.
Okay, that's wonderful. What made you get interested in interfaith dialogue? Was there an event in your life, or a perspective, or a series of events that motivated you to sort of pursue this line of research and work?
Yeah, so I started my sort of graduate intellectual work in hardcore international relations. I was focused on security studies. I did my dissertation on proliferation, and so this was very sort of realist type mainstream security studies. And then, I just realized that the canvas of international relations needed to be broadened out, and we could include a few more items in the mix, because identity politics was also on the rise. Looked like there was a transnational movement towards more identitarian sort of international relations, and Islam had made a comeback into international relations. So I figured in order to have a more holistic view on the globe, we needed to include religion, not just as a theological issue, but more as a civilizational issue in the way we study international relations. And so I sort of branched out and removed that, hardcore security studies, shrink wrap, and just allowed myself to be exposed to new type of ecosystems. I got involved with the Muslim community here in Miami, and that was instrumental in sort of pushing me forward in that direction. And then that work got more institutionalized after the Jaffer Center here at FIU was established, with which I was initially affiliated, and then that work here at FIU and Professor Misbahi's work sort of led the way to establishing the Jaffer Institute at Miami Dade College. And the college, Miami Dade College, was very embracing of the idea. And I think, we've done tremendous work over the past 4 or 5 years that we've been around to bring a little bit of this, wide world to our students at Miami Dade College who might not have exposure to that type of experience if they were to pursue their, sort of academic studies.
So, what impact do you ultimately hope that your program has?
Well, we want to hopefully engender a sense of intercultural curiosity and maybe literacy into our students. to show them that this is a big world, and there's a lot of things that are going on in the world that unless you actively seek them, you might not get exposure to. And from a purely functional perspective, I always tell students at MDC that this is an essential skill. This is not a soft skill anymore. This is something that will equip you to become marketable in a global workplace. So, although it looks good on your resume cosmetically, but beyond that, if you want to be successful in your professional careers, you need to have some sense of intercultural, interfaith curiosity and literacy. So, when you're exposed to a globalized workplace, you can sort of masterfully navigate that terrain and interact with people that will most likely come from different religious, ethnic, linguistic, national backgrounds.
Yeah. I think it teaches a lot of different types of skills as well. I mean, it teaches communication skills. It teaches, social and emotional, cultural, awareness, being able to translate, across cultures, and just being, more socially conversant with different perspectives. And I think that has a lot of different effects in terms of people's careers and
yeah, because oftentimes people get sort of trapped in their little comfort zone,
right.
And they cocoon themselves, and by doing that, they deprive themselves of a lot of opportunities to grow, intellectually, to grow character-wise, and also professionally, like I said. So, at Miami Dade College, we're part of CESI. Change Making Education and Social Innovation has 3 pillars at MDC. One of which is the Jaffer Institute, that the work that we do, but we also have the Earth Ethics Institute and Institute for Civic Engagement and Democracy. So holistically, we're trying to to bring that non-curricular dimension to our students, and like I said, I think this is the type of work that at least our demographics at MDC might not organically get exposure to.
So speaking of that, I mean, I think there's some challenges that there's a lot of miscommunication. I think among people of different sort of faith traditions and cultures. When you see, what are the major challenges the students have in terms of, I guess, engaging with the interfaith work that you guys do?
I think some of the challenges includes the media ecosystem that we have in this country, because our work is largely focused on the Abrahamic tradition, with even more emphasis put on Islam as a more underrepresented perspective. And I think we sometimes think that in this country we live in a sort of rich media ecosystem, but when it comes to choice, when it comes to the mainstream media, Islam's image is still, in the West in general, maybe in the United States even more so, is crisis driven. So a lot of students don't get access to a more organic narrative or understanding of Islam. So we're trying to sort of move beyond those cliches and introduce the Abrahamic tradition, of which Islam is an important part, as a civilizational entity. So that's why most of the work that we do doesn't deal with theological stuff per se. We're trying to build bridges, and as bridge builders, I try to focus mostly on sort of cultural dimensions and aspects of Islam, like Islamic philosophy, Islamic art, Islamic, fashion. Even we've done an event, architecture, culinary traditions in the Muslim world, and I think those are the the issue areas that have the most potential for bridge building and instilling a genuine sense of curiosity in our students.
Okay. I think so. When we look at the world as a whole today, what are the major clashes that you see between sort of faith traditions that more dialogue could perhaps help to promote peace? So, what are the kind of the major, what are the directions in which interfaith dialogue at a global level can go?
Yeah. I think oftentimes what happens with interfaith dialogue is that it sort of degenerates into a debate,
Mm.
and because dialogue has certain prerequisites that differentiates it from debate. So you need to be willing to be self-deprecating to a certain degree. You need to come to dialogue with an open mind and be willing to be wrong.
Mm.
And so a lot of times when we focus purely on theological stuff, people are just not willing to have that openness of mind and maybe even heart that is a prerequisite for having an authentic, genuine, and productive dialogue. And I think the fact that our global politics is saturated with identity issues doesn't help us either. So we have a highly polarized globe right now, and that makes our work even more challenging. So, tribalism, puritanical ideas, they're on the rise across the world, not just here in the United States, which makes our work challenging, but also much more impactful and valuable. And I think the trick is to find champions for this work, and I think those types of people do exist in every society and community. I mean, here in South Florida, we've been very fortunate to liaison, to work with folks, religious leaders, and secular folks as well from different faith traditions, and they've been contributing a ton to our work. As you know, you've been part of that ecosystem here in South Florida as well. And I think this could be a little incubator for us to further develop our ideas and become a role model for this type of community work and bridge building in the community that could be emulated elsewhere in the country.
Absolutely. Do you think that there is something unique about South Florida that has sort of helped to create this ecosystem?
I think that has a lot to do with the community leaders. It also has to do with champions of this work.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned Dr. Misbahi, Dr. Jaffer, and so forth. So these are people who've been quite instrumental in, I think, laying the groundwork for people like us to come on board and further expand and deepen that work. I mean, this type of work needs those types of initial sort of pushers and creating momentum for it. And we've been very fortunate that we have that kind of momentum, both at the academic level, from FIU, from Miami Dade College, but also at the community level, all the the religious institutes that we work with, be it mosques, temples, and churches, and so forth. And once you have that critical mass of people who are dedicated to this work genuinely, then I think it just gets much easier, and over time, it sort of creates this positive feedback loop that I hope and I think we're in the process of.
Okay. One of the things that it's easier to do interfaith work in a place like the United States, where there's a lot of religious freedom, there's a lot of pluralism. When you're looking at other places, and particularly in the Muslim world, in Iran, in Pakistan, other places where there are minorities, but religious freedom is not something that is understood the way that it is in the West. How do you build this sort of work in those societies?
Well, I think this work has to be contextualized based on the organic realities of every society, every country, maybe even every community. So I don't think we have a one-size-fits-all recipe for how to do this work. This work that we do that works quite wonderfully in South Florida might not be applicable to the United Kingdom, for example, because I think one of the challenges is Islamophobia, and Islamophobia, which is a major barrier to building these types of bridges, manifests itself differently in different societal ecosystems, but political realities and also geopolitics is as part of it. Now, artificial intelligence, these large language models, are also part of this ecosystem. So I'm a little bit hesitant to tell folks what to do, but I think once we establish the baseline for how to have an authentic dialogue and generate a genuine sense of interfaith and intercultural curiosity, then maybe half the battle is already won. Then it's the question of tweaking it and making it work with the existing circumstances and conditions on the ground. And then you need to have people who are well versed in their community, the realities of their community, but who are also well versed in terms of different faith systems. We have in Florida, folks who are genuinely interested in multi faith and interfaith work because they have genuine curiosity about other faith systems. So to find those people is key, and it's, by the way, not easy because, like I said, tribalism and these puritanical tendencies are on the rise, and that makes finding those folks very difficult who are well versed in multiple faiths and cultural traditions. But I think in general, because it's so easy to travel these days, and to have exposure to other countries and cultures, maybe that could be something that could contribute to enriching this work and facilitating this work. I mean, for me personally, I've traveled to over 100 countries, and that's been very instrumental in sort of instilling in me the self-confidence, but also hope that people are people. They're functionally, for the most part, the same.
Right.
It's just that we sometimes tend to overemphasize the differences that could sometimes be actually minor and inconsequential at the expense of the commonalities of our, humanity.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I've also noticed is that we're all sharing a very common human experience, and even in situations where literally there is no connection with regards to language, verbal language at least, you can communicate and you get a sense of who people are just by their actions, by their facial expressions, by their attitude. There's so many other ways to be able to read and connect to people and share those experiences.
I mean, it's kind of odd that back in the day in Andalusia, we had this interfaith ecosystem where Muslims, Jews, and Christians worked so collaboratively together. So, and this was not even about interfaith tolerance. They viewed each other as vehicles for enrichment.
Right.
And I think we'll be lucky if we could emulate that Andalusian experience that you see in the south of Spain, in cities like Granada and Sevilla, in Cordoba, in the 21st century. And again, at least on paper, we should be able to emulate that experience on steroids in the 21st century. So why is it that we're not able to do that? Part of that has to do that we had a lot of these puritanical approaches to religion, which are very modern, recent phenomena.
Yeah.
So maybe getting back to that traditional type of understanding religion will go a long way in facilitating that type of interaction.
I mean, my perspective has always been that part of the challenge also is that, so much, even and not just the work that I do in this tradition, but in other religious traditions as well. People who are colonized, especially, are still they're still responding to their colonizers, even though the colonizers are gone. So that's one part of it. And second is that they're constantly trying to defend their faith and trying to articulate it in a way that makes it that is justifiable, I think, to an audience that's not their own, and then also they don't necessarily have the access to the intellectual tradition itself to create an organic creative space for the development of ideas within the civilization itself. And I think that is a big challenge. So when you don't have the confidence that your civilization has something unique to tell the world, that you're not constantly in response to someone else that's denigrating the tradition, you don't have that ability to be as creative, I think. And I think that's one of the challenges
I also think another challenge is that for a lot of people, they probably overmix religion and their culture. Because I think it's much easier to build interfaith bridges if folks could sort of separate out the cultural dimensions of their faith. Because religions,
Give me an example.
when you strip them down to their core, they're very easy. Like, think about Islam. It's the easiest thing in the world to become Muslim. You just profess oneness of God, and the fact that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his messenger.
Sure.
So you're already part of that ecosystem. But when you talk to Muslims about what Islam means, they sort of accessorize it with a lot of cultural stuff. And for a lot of these folks, they're not quite aware of where religion, like Islam, ends and when their, cultural background begins. Like, if they, in case they come from Pakistan or Iran or, what have you, they inject too much cultural stuff, too many of their personal experiences into religion. And that makes our work very complicated. So I think it would be good for folks to understand and to be able to differentiate between the DNA of their religion. Religion of Islam has a very simple DNA, and separate out, at least suspend the cultural accessories of their religion and enter the interfaith dialogue ecosystem in a very simple manner. I think that'll make our work much easier. And this is what I tell my students when I teach courses on Islam, that you need to understand the chromosome of Islam, and then learn about other things over history that have been sedimented onto this religion, but don't let that historical process impede your ability to connect with other faith traditions. We have this notion of transcendental unity of all religions, and that becomes achievable when you understand that the kernel of truth in the Abrahamic tradition is largely the same.
Absolutely. One of the challenges also, I know that you're working on many of these topics. How do you see the role of technology and AI affecting interfaith dialogue and intercultural communication?
Well, I think that needs to play out its full potential. But based on my initial experience with AI, especially with large language models, we have the problem of algorithmic biases that are baked into a lot of these systems. So you have all types of algorithmic biases in these large language models, and that has to do a lot with their pre-training data, most of which has been harvested from the internet, mostly from Reddit. So the type of biases that you have on platforms like Reddit get amplified in the large language models. And a lot of folks, a lot of our students as well, they treat platforms like ChatGPT as completely neutral and unbiased, and that becomes their primary source of getting information.
Right.
So that is one challenge. But there's also other types of biases. There's selection bias. There's non-algorithmic types of biases that have created the problem of Islamophobia in these large language models. And those are issues that need to be addressed. I think the Muslim community has to be more proactive in addressing some of those pathologies that are, in those platforms, both at the algorithmic and non-algorithmic level, because these platforms will shape our cognitive reality and a lot of the ways in which we come to socialize with the world. Because remember, a lot of Gen Z, the way they socialize with the world is not through physical interactions anymore. So they heavily rely on the cyber domain and on these platforms. So that potentially could be a major roadblock in the way of the work that we're trying to do. So that's why I've been a big advocate of creating some connectivity with these LLM platforms to expose, to flag, and then try and come up with solutions to address some of these challenges like Islamophobia, like anti-Semitism, and so forth that you see on those platforms.
Okay, great. Last question. What do you want the community to take away from the work that you're doing, the research, sort of the community activism? What are some important things that you think should be takeaways for the people that you're trying to reach?
I think it'd be great if the community was more proactively engaged and involved in the university ecosystem, and there are a variety of ways they could contribute to our work. The simplest of which is to coming to our events in different capacities, as audience, as speakers, to our workshops, and also I think they could also give us feedback in terms of what it is that they want us to do to build those bridges, because a lot of our work is organically community facing.
Right.
Obviously, our primary audience is our students, but our objective ultimately is to create these organic links between the community and our students. And I think that'd be a huge contribution by the community if they could do that. But they can also contribute more institutionally to our work. Different types of support that we could benefit from. We could always work with more religious institutions in South Florida as well. I think for as takeaway, like I said, the model that I always have in my mind is Andalusia, and to somehow recreate that ecosystem in the 21st century. And that ecosystem obviously had, a core of academics and intellectuals, that part of it, but then they were part of a larger community that was socialized into thinking about their existence in the world in terms of an interfaith reality, intercultural reality, and viewing folks from other faith traditions as sources for mutual enrichment, for opening new horizons and new avenues for development. And for our students, I'll tell them that they need to develop their character muscles. And this is the type of work that will definitely help facilitate the development of those character muscles, which are essential to become successful in any capacity, professional and non-professional, that they will encounter in their lives.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important point, that a lot of the work that we do is critical, I think, thinking about character and virtue. It's like we're also trying to develop better people. And when you actually have a deep spiritual core, and you have an idea of ideas of justice, of compassion, these things are part of your character. This makes the work not only much easier, but also becomes something that is creative, generative, self-sustaining, and it just becomes part of your everyday life. So it's not something that's separate interfaith dialogue or intercultural sort of competency, but it becomes part of who you are and how you sort of move through the world. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone is born intolerant towards other religions or other people.
absolutely.
So this is something that you learn,
Right.
and then unlearning it becomes complicated. But
Right.
that is what we're trying to
Exactly.
to do to give them another opportunity to re-socialize themselves
Right.
into a not a different reality, but to a more interfaith reality, hopefully. So there's this process of unlearning that for me is very problematic, because unlearning means that you need to be willing to leave your comfort zone.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that's difficult. But my advice to students is that your comfort zone is essentially a trap. And it takes some courage to do that, but the rewards are absolutely worth it, in the long term.
Yeah, and we learn our best by challenges, by failures. All those things actually help us to grow as people. So it's really important to be able to have a bit of challenge out there to develop who we are as people. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Homayounvash. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you as our first guest in the series, and look forward to continuing the work with you.
Thank you so much, and I hope this is the beginning of a sustainable series of podcasts and hopefully a YouTube channel. And this is an amazing initiative, and I want to applaud you for taking this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you.